This is Stephen Janis for the Real News Network. We're here interviewing David Warnock as part of our series of interviews with mayoral candidates about specific policy issues and what they would do if they were elected. Thank you for doing this interview with us. So just to start off, something that is a big issue, but maybe it doesn't get covered as much. And you're a business person. You're sort of talking about your business experiences being important to your candidacy. The city has double the highest tax rate, property tax rate of any municipality or jurisdiction throughout the state. What do you think you're going to do to sort of address that problem or look at that? Because, from a business perspective, how can a city function if it's twice as expensive fundamentally?
Well, first and foremost, we haven't had audits in municipal functions since William Donald Schaefer was mayor. And I think that, you can't look at cutting taxes until you understand exactly what you're spending money for. Gregory Thornton up at North Avenue found $3.6 million worth of annual expenses in ghost employees and spouses that weren't spouses on the health care plan. That's 36 teachers by my math. I just wonder how many teachers we're going to find when we really do independent audits of our municipal functions.
And Governor Larry Hogan came into town and, said he's going to put like $700 million, again, in the form of tax breaks. And that's sort of been the way to address this, is to have sort of tax breaks for developers, TIFs, those kind of things. Where do you stand on tax breaks for developers, TIFs? The sort of tax policy has led to sort of what some say is a bifurcated tax system in the city.
Well, I've said to the development community, and I remember meeting with two of the major developers in Baltimore City and saying that, you cannot harvest the fruit of the Inner Harbor without planting seeds in East and West Baltimore. Those days have to end. And in my administration, if you get a TIF or you get a pilot, you get a rec center. And we'll be clear about it so that people can factor that in their return on capital analysis. But if you get a TIF or you get a pilot, you get a rec center. And it was interesting when I talked to the developers about that. They both sat back and they looked at me, and I thought, oh boy, this isn't going very well. And then they said the most interesting thing. They both moved forward and said, wow, nobody from the mayor's office has ever asked us that before. Wow. So this election's about bringing people together.
Okay, so speaking of that, we have a serious crime problem in Baltimore. I mean, it's no secret. We've had 340 homicides. And the city budget, as you talked about, predominantly goes to public safety. As some say, to the detriment of school system. We put more money in policing than we do in schools. And we've asked every candidate this, what you would do to rebalance that, or if you think that should be rebalanced. Should more money go into schools, less into policing? What would be your formula for dealing with the criminal justice problem in this town?
Well, clearly, the crime problem needs to be attacked with a structural and a tactical approach. The tactical approach is we're going to get more cops out of the cars. We're going to get the cops. I like to say we're going to have stop and talk as opposed to stop and frisk. We're going to have more of our cops live in the city. We're going to incentivize to live in the city. We're going to have body cameras. But I think that you need to think strategically. And a couple of things three things that I'll mention strategically that I think will have a big impact in the long run. One, we need to treat our police with respect. The conditions that we're asking them to work under are deplorable. So I think that we need to restore and rehabilitate our district police offices, fix up the back of the house, make it respectful for our cops to work there. But of equal importance, turn the front of the house into a PAL center and a community center. The architectural footprint is almost identical in most of our police district offices, right? Have free Wi-Fi. So we turn the front of the house in a place of community engagement. Second, we need to create a promote from within culture in the police department. We have to end the days when we go to Oakland to find the next chief of police. The same's true in the fire department. The same's true at North Avenue, by the way. It's not right that a mid-level person at the police department feels like there's no way they can get the top job. And in all of my municipal functions, people will be evaluated on customer service as well as a promote from within culture. And third, and most important, we need to create jobs, because we will never truly solve our crime problem in this city until we put people to work.
Well, that's a good question, because how do we do that? I mean, we talked to some economists about Governor Hogan's proposals, which would be to give tax subsidies to people who would build buildings. But of course, that doesn't address the problems of people. So what is the long-term equation in terms of creating jobs in the city for you?
Well, there's a number of things. One, we need to remove the impediments that people have to getting jobs in the first place. And that's what I've been doing for 15 years as the chairman of the Center for Urban Families. I've been a passionate advocate of automatic expungement of non-convictions, for example, and a passionate advocate of understanding the skills that are necessary to put individuals to work. It's what we do at the Center for Urban Families. Give people the skill sets that they need to get in the workplace and recognize that there are structural and, then, frankly, in some institutional racism that keeps people out of the workplace. So we need to create programs that give people skills, like we're doing at Green Street Academy, the charter school I started. Not only are we creating certification programs for our kids at Green Street, we're bringing the parents of our kids into Green Street to get certifications as well to prepare them for a world of work. And the other thing that we need to do is we need to have a mayor that is truly cheerleader in chief. I am very much looking forward to working with Hopkins and University of Maryland and Under Armour and others, going out and talking to their suppliers and being prepared with a team from the mayor's office to say, what does it take to get your suppliers to move their manufacturing plant or their regional headquarters in Baltimore? And we'll be prepared with a plan. If you'll just say you do more business with them if they move to Baltimore, we'll be prepared with a plan for what we would do for them if they move to our city. That's the strategic approach to it.
Well, one thing that might be interesting strategically is, the city's public housing system has been under a microscope since, revelations that workers were asking for sex in exchange for repairs. We have 11,000 units, one of the largest in the country. Number one, what would you do to fix that system? I know there's a couple programs right now. And number two, if you were mayor, would Paul Graziano be fired, or do you think he needs to go?
Well, I've been public about the fact that Mr. Graziano would not have a place in my administration. But let's talk about things that are more important. The things that are more important are respect, right? When I think about the mortgage and the rental discrimination in Baltimore, it disgusts me. And when I think about, back to your point about the housing department, the lack of respect and the lack of customer service that the housing department treats the people that live in this city, it also makes me disgusted. So again, back to my concept of customer service, the housing department in my administration will understand that its customers are the citizens of Baltimore. Now, with respect to vacant housing, right, I look at vacant housing as a job creation opportunity. I started a company called Green Job Works, run by Larry Lopez, 40% owned by the Center for Urban Families. We have 125 people doing demolition and remediation. We need to look at demolition and remediation as a job opportunity. They tear down more houses in Detroit in a week than we do in a year. That's an opportunity.
So that would be something, an extension of the vacancy to value, or are you talking about something, a larger commitment?
Absolutely larger commitment.
All right, okay. There's been a lot of talk about, inequality and the tale of two cities. One solution people say is a living wage law. We have one now in the books for city contractors. Would you support a living wage law, and if so, what would that living wage be?
I think that there is a great deal of interest and a great deal of logic towards moving on a stepwise basis to a $15 an hour minimum wage. I think we can get there, and I think that makes sense. But I don't think that we can confuse moving to a $15 an hour minimum wage with a job creation strategy. That's a living wage creation strategy. In my administration, we are going to focus on both. We're going to focus on a living wage strategy, and we're going to focus on a job creation strategy. And if you look at the companies that I've started over the years, if you look at Town Park, if you look at, we could list a lot of the companies, the for-profit and not-for-profit, Green Street Academy, Center for Urban Families. Those companies have been companies that pay people a living wage. And we need to do that throughout our city.
Now, you have loaned your campaign $1 million. You now lead the whole pack with the amount of money you have. What do you say to people who say, well, he just loaned himself, he's a rich guy who's trying to become mayor, who's buying his way into mayoralty, who'd be critical of that? What would you say to that sort of concern that you haven't raised your money grassroots, but raised it through your own pocket?
I'd say two things. One, this is one of the most important investments that I've ever made. I believe in this city. I really do believe we can write the greatest turnaround story in America. And that investment that I made in my campaign is all about my belief that we really can affect structural and lasting, sustainable change in Baltimore. The other thing I'd say is thank you. Thank you to the hundreds of people who've invested in my campaign. We have literally hundreds of people who've invested in our campaign from everywhere from $5 to the maximum of $6,000. So, one of the things that I couldn't be more happy about is the level of enthusiasm and the level of commitment from people all over Baltimore in the vision that I have for this great city.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Ms. Moore. We really appreciate you
Thanks.
talking to us. It was
nice
great to hear
see
from you. And that's the end of our interview. We'll be talking to him hopefully throughout the campaign as the campaign heats up. This is Stephen Janis reporting for the Real News Network in Baltimore.